Good day, everybody, and welcome to Front Row Noles meets Seminole Sidelines. Tom Block, Keith Jones, Bob Ferrante from the Osceola. Gentlemen, it's Miami week. It feels like Miami week. It's been a while since I think I've said that, meaning more than a year potentially since we've had one with the stakes this high and both teams ranked as high as they are. Do you guys feel similar?
First time since 2016. I think they've both been ranked in the top 25. So it's been a while since we've seen both teams playing at a high level going into the game.
As I mentioned on our after game show over the weekend, Tommy and Bob, no surprise to you, I remember my freshman year, and we came out for practice, and the only thing the coaches were saying was Miami week, Miami week, Miami week, and then repeating when Florida week came. I mean, it had that significance way back in the day, and I think it still has even a greater significance today.
Keith, I'm not trying to date you by asking this question, but when you played, it was before Miami's rise to prominence, and I'm curious how the rivalry was compared to what you've seen over the years after your playing days, given the success Miami had starting your last year when they had that 1-point win over you and then leading to their national title shortly after that.
Well, the biggest part of it for players is that you knew everybody, because the vast majority of the Florida team and the Miami team, and obviously the Florida State team, came from Florida. So you had played against these guys, whether you knew them well or not. Some guys might be from your hometown. So when you went back home for Christmas or over the summer, you had to talk about it. The rivalry amongst the fans came about with Miami's rise to prominence, and obviously the Gators with their national championships and FSU with theirs, all coming, in the early to mid 80s and afterwards. But for the players, you know a bunch of the guys on the other side of the field, other side of the line of scrimmage on the field, and that's where the rivalry began, in my estimation.
Bob, you mentioned the 2016 game. Was that the block at the Rock? Am I remembering correctly on that one?
That is it.
DeMarcus Walker doing the honors. So interesting, and we will talk more about it. We got a loaded show here, and the longtime voice of the Canes, Joe Zagacki, will join us. And Keith, just in the way that you and I and you, Bob, quite frankly, are identified as Florida State guys, Joe is a Miami Hurricane, South Florida guy through and through, and he's been kind enough. I think he's joined our show every year before this game, Keith, since we started doing it. So, and obviously we knew him before then. And then Taylor Tannebaum from the ACC Network will join us. They're rolling in with Jimbo and EJ and the whole crew, I guess, this weekend. So we'll talk with her. She's a Florida State alum. Look forward to that conversation. Full slate ahead. We were just getting started, so settle in. Front Row Noles rolls on right after this.
Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop.
We are back on Front Row Noles, Seminole Sidelines. Tom Block, Keith Jones, the Osceola's Bob Ferrante, and pleased to continue a tradition that we're too old to remember how far it goes back. But since the origins of this podcast, anyway, the voice of the Canes, Joe Zagacki, is kind enough to join us. And Joe, good to see you. How are things in South Florida? How are you doing?
Fellas, all is good. All is well here in South Florida. The rain has finally decided to go someplace else after about the last 6 weeks. So that's been nice. Hurricanes are playing good football, so that's nice as well. And it's Miami, Florida State week, and everybody's revved up and ready to go. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It's Miami, Florida State week, but with greater stakes because both teams are better than they have been, at least at the same time in a while. Does it feel more like Miami, Florida State of old, or is it always the same for you year after year, Joe?
I'm starting to answer that question this way, Tom. People ask me, is Miami back? Probably much like to ask, is Florida State back, right? And I think the answer to that is finally, at least in my lifetime, I don't think it's ever going to be quite the same for Miami and Florida State as it was in the 80s and 90s. And I don't know that Miami and Florida State are ever going to be back the way they were, because it's impossible. What Miami and Florida State did in their heyday, that's going to be impossible to do that, to duplicate that setting. Now, some will go, oh, well, look, Alabama did. Okay, So one team. But, Florida State was at 14 straight years of 10 wins. And Miami, I added this up the other day just for the hell of it, from 1985 to 1992, their overall record was like 78-7. And two of the losses were national championship games, meaning the regular seasons were undefeated. So Miami, Florida State this week feels like Miami and Florida State, but I don't think it feels like 1991 in Miami, Florida State. And for those of us that experienced 91 Miami, Florida State, or 89 Miami, Florida State, or 92 Miami, Florida State, we just have to cherish that because those are really special days. And I'm not sure they're ever coming back.
Joe, for all the hype, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, the air show, kicks going left and right, this game, like many others, probably going to come down to the running game. What do you think about Miami's run offense and their run defense?
Now, it's funny you mentioned that, Jonesy, because when Miami and Florida State played those great games, Florida State always put the stat out about the team that won the running game battle won the game. And sometimes, I think in one game, it was like 10 yards to 9 yards. The defenses were so ferocious. So 1 inch in those games meant the world. And I do believe in this game, whoever runs for more yards is probably going to win. I think Miami, how they're starting to evolve. Now we're 4 games in, so Florida State got a pretty good feel for Miami. And I think one of the questions I had for Miami in the offseason was, is the offense going to be Carson Beck's offense, or is it going to revolve around Mark Fletcher? And the last 2 games, it's revolved around Mark Fletcher. He's gone for over 100 yards in the last 2 games. And these are not, Castellanos' 100 yards are escape yards and running and elusive and flash and dash. Mark Fletcher's 100 yards are, I'm lowering the right shoulder and I'm going to take on 3 defenders and run you over. It's kind of a different approach. So I do think whoever controls the run game wins. I think if Miami turns it into a running back offensive line game, takes a little pressure off of Carson Beck, who I think is very good, but still trying to prove himself a little bit. And but he's a very good field general, very good quarterback, and very smart. But I think the way Mario Cristobal wants to play is give it to Mark Fletcher and let him hammer it behind the offensive line. Conversely, Miami's run defense, they've held all 4 opponents under 100 yards rushing, significant improvement over last year. But they're gonna have to lasso Castellanos. And then what is amusing to me with the Florida State run game is everybody's a running back, not just the running backs. Wide receivers are running back, the tight ends are running back, the running backs are running back, the quarterbacks are running back. So you can't get fooled by that stuff.
I agree with you that the running game is going to be key, Joe, but I'm also curious about Carson Beck. I mean, you've probably seen him a lot at Georgia. You've seen him now 4 games here at Miami. There was rain and kind of a sloppy game against Florida, right, with the weather there. But how have you seen Carson, just how is he working in with this offense with Shannon Dawson, what they want to run?
Yeah, he's been great, to be honest with you. He's been great. He's been a pro. I think he's going to be a pro. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. He's got the NFL frame. He sees over the top of the defense. I do wonder if, everybody knows that he came here for a lot of money. So I think we're in this era of college football where we have free agency, and much like in the NFL or Major League Baseball, when guys sign big contracts, then they feel pressure to live up to it. I don't know if he's feeling that pressure or not. I do think that Florida has a really good defense. If there's something good about Florida, it is their defense. They are big. They are fast. Cormani McClain in the secondary had some stuff going on with Miami because they recruited him. He's really good. I think Ron Roberts probably got into the head of Beck a little bit, picked him off 3 times last year. So I know that was a topic of discussion for Miami going in. And, of course, he threw the interception. I think his problem last week against Florida, 2 weeks ago, was more self-inflicted wounds. Miami probably should have won that game in the second quarter. They had the ball 1st and goal and had 2 offensive line penalties. I think 3 times they had a chance to score touchdowns, and offensive line penalties pushed them back. But to answer your question, he's been accurate, completing 70-some% of his passes. He's been smart, and I think he's in sync with Shannon Dawson. I think the difference between Cam Ward and Carson Beck is a really field general. Ward was a gunslinger. He came here to improve Miami and to improve himself, and he did both. But I think if it was a run-pass option, it wasn't really a run-pass option. It was pass first. Carson Beck, he analyzes the defense, and he gets Miami into the right play.
Let's talk about the other side. Ruben Bain, Joe, you've been around Miami as a long time, as we've discussed, and there's a whole list of great defensive linemen from Miami. How is Ruben stacking up? Maybe it's a little premature for me to put him with some of the greats over the years, but you see him. I mean, how does he rate? What has he brought to this defense? Is he who the defense keys? Is he the key there?
Yeah. Well, first thing is, when you come across the college kids that are great kids, you want to, you want people to know that, because there are enough, stories out there about kids being greedy and all that. And this kid is off the charts. He's just, football, family, that whole deal, very dedicated to doing everything the right way. And so far, he's been a bone crusher. He's got 22 tackles. He's a defensive end that leads the team in tackles. And, you have a great defensive end. Question Jonesy always is right. You got a great defensive end. Is that more important than a great defensive tackle? Great defensive end can influence the game. You got to block them. But you can also influence a defensive end if you're the offense, where if you got a great defensive tackle, you got to deal with that guy inside all day long. But Bain has just had such an impact on every game. You can't block him. And then against Notre Dame, he intercepts the ball 15 yards away from the line of scrimmage. And he just puts in so much work and dedication. He's going to be a real factor in this game. I'm sure, Florida State, with all their misdirection and razzle-dazzle and trick plays, will try to slow him down. But even by doing that, he's going to affect the game. I mean, you're going to have to dedicate some asset to Ruben Bain, and that's going to open something else up for someone else. He probably could win the Heisman Trophy if they, gave it to a defensive player. But he's going to be with one of the as long as he stays healthy, he'll be mentioned with all the other great Miami defensive linemen, because he's on his way to an All-American year. He's just been unstoppable.
Joe, big picture. There was a time a year ago, 18 months ago, 24 months ago, when Miami faithful were wondering if Mario Cristobal was the guy. Has that died? Obviously, it's died down, but has it gone away?
He's 15-3, I think it is, in the last 18 games. So, you are what your record says you are, and he's 10-3 a year ago, got Miami to 10 wins. It's never good enough here. The expectations are win a championship, win the ACC, win a championship. But, really, if you look now at the resume and you see the recruits that are coming in, the style of play, and in this era where you got all these different guys coming in, I think he's done a good job away from the record, Jonesy, there's going to be a lot of talk about Miami in the portal. But he's done a very good job of homegrown players. He doesn't get enough credit for that. Ruben Bain's one of those examples, homegrown player. Justin Scott's going to start defensive tackle, homegrown. Ahmad Moten, homegrown. Basaint is a homegrown player. Raul Aguirre, homegrown. Chase Smith, Damari Brown, O.J. Frederick. That's half the defense, more than half the defense right there are guys that he recruited. The supplements this year have helped. And I think with the challenge in the portal is, at least for Miami, maybe Florida State experienced this. I think they got guys the first couple of years, their attitude was, we're doing you a favor by playing for Miami, right? We're playing for you guys, and we're doing you a favor. Now they got guys that are playing because they want to be here. And some of those guys that felt like they were doing us a favor, they kind of fizzled at the end of last year. They kind of just disappeared when Miami needed them most. So I think the fan base now is behind Mario. I think they like this style of play. It's more like old Miami, big offensive line, great in the trenches, good running back. Carson Beck, go back to him. You could probably compare him to Ken Dorsey a little bit. Probably more skilled than Dorsey, but a really good field general. And over the last 3 years, he's beat Clemson. He's beat Florida twice. He's beat Notre Dame. And he's got to win against Florida State. So he's on the right path. He's just got to finish the season.
Has Mario taken on, I don't want to say a CEO role, but one of the storylines here is with Florida State, Mike Norvell has sort of taken on this CEO role and letting Gus Malzahn handle the offense. Tony White, obviously the defense. It seems like maybe Mario has done a really good job, like you said, with recruiting in the big picture. He's kept the homegrown guys from Dade, Broward, Palm Beach home, but he's also maybe allowed Shannon Dawson to do his thing, brought in a new defensive coordinator. Has Mario settled into a kind of a high-level CEO role as far as recruiting, managing the roster, the portal, and sort of the big picture, and letting the coordinators and assistants run a lot of things?
It's funny you mentioned that, Bob. It's always my beef with head coaches, and now not with Mario, because I always wonder this: a guy gets a job because he was a great offensive coordinator or a great defensive coordinator, and then he becomes the head coach and he says, "I'm not doing that anymore." And I say, "Why are you giving up what got you the job?" It makes no sense to me, right? I mean, if you're really good on defense, then that's where you should be. Like Al Golden was really good on defense when he came here, and we saw at Notre Dame, but then he didn't coach defense here. It didn't make any sense to me. In the case of Mario Cristobal, he's an old offensive line coach, and I think that the coordinators usually are like quarterbacks, I don't know, linebackers and safeties or something. You don't see a lot of, I don't know. I think offensive linemen, Jonesy, they see the game from a different perspective, right? And I'm not sure they see it from the 1,000 feet up, but I think they see it from the trenches. And I think Mario's done a good job of saying, no, I'm staying out of calling plays. And to your point, Bob, I'm organizing this. And I think what he's really good at is recruiting. I think he's very good at setting a culture. But he used the word culture. So that's where his strength lies in. This is what we're going to stand for. This is what I'm going to stand for. I'm going to lead by example, and I want to get like-minded coaches and players. Now, he's not for everybody. I assure you, he's not going to wear coaches out. He's not for everybody. Probably not for every coach, not for every player, but it's his program. He's going to run it his way, and a little bit like in Philadelphia with their head coach. Yeah, he's going to decide we go for it or not, and stuff like that. But he's trying to build the environment here, and build an environment of, here's our attitude, whatever it takes. And if you get enough guys that can live by whatever it takes, if that means Carson Beck has to throw 12 passes in a game, then rather than 40 to win, then that's whatever it takes. If Carson Beck has got to throw 50 to win and Mark Fletcher is going to get 10 carries, whatever it takes, those guys have to be all in on that. And I think that's where he's done a good job.
So as a final question then, Joe, what does it take for Miami? What are your keys this week?
I think this is an identity game. And there's no question to me that Miami is a physical team, and that's how they want to play. So they want to win the trenches. My question with Florida State is, and I know, Malzahn has some physical run plays in their inside zone and all of that stuff, but they also seem to want to trick you a little bit. And I don't think you can be both. I don't think you can practice being both. Miami's not going to run trick plays. Now, maybe they run one or two, but they're not going to run trick plays because they're not good at it. They're good at hitting you in the face and tackling. That's what they're good at. Florida State wants to hit you in the face, but they also want the wide receiver to carry the ball on a jet sweep or the tight end to throw a jump pass. So I don't know if they can be as physical as Miami. They want to be, and I think that will be the game. To me, it goes back to stopping the run. And for Miami, that's I'm not sure why teams don't look at Castellanos and say, look, this is going to be like basketball. We're just going to take him out. And we're going to find someone else to beat us. Someone else is going to have to run for 100 yards. Someone else is going to have to do the damage. And I think Miami probably, the good news for them is going to be when Castellanos throws the ball, right? And so I think they're going to rely on that. For Miami to win, it's going to be offensive line and running backs. And then for Miami to win, it's going to be their defensive line winning early and forcing Castellanos or someone else Castellanos to win the game in an uncomfortable manner, or someone else is going to have to win the game. And of course, we got to put takeaways in there and all that stuff. Turn the ball over in this game is probably not going to be conducive to either side. I will say this: Miami played Castellanos when he was at Boston College, and he did run for 130 yards against Miami. Now, it's a different defense and a different style of defense, but I think that he's going to be their number one priority, and he's probably going to be in a game that's maybe the most physical he's been in, including the Alabama game.
Joe Zagacki, the longtime voice of the Canes. We appreciate him joining us. And as always, we need to get a break real quick. More Front Row Noles right after this. Thank you, Joe.
All right, fellas. Thank you.
Roll Tribe. Florida State's 31-17 win over Alabama kicked off an exciting season for Seminole fans to enjoy with the Osceola's free morning newsletter. Since 1982, the Osceola has provided reliable coverage of Seminole sports and now offers a free daily newsletter with the option to upgrade to full access with a paid subscription. For more information about free or premium subscriptions, visit theosceola.com. Get 31% off your first year subscription and receive $25 off any Osceola branded merch. Visit theosceola.com.
Back on Front Row Noles. It must be FSU Miami week. We're loaded up. Thanks to Joe Zagacki for joining us from Canes World in South Florida. We have another guest whose roots are from South Florida, as are mine, going way back. But Taylor Tannebaum is with us. She is with the ACC Network. She's also a Florida State alum. And full disclosure, a former student and TA of mine from way back when, and she has gone on to much bigger and better things than I have ever achieved. But Taylor, how are you?
I'm great. That is not true. But it's great to be with you guys and always great to be with you, Tom. And I credit a lot of where I am to you. I know I forget sometimes. I tell people all the time in my story, if you have to take a class multiple ways, try it. I took that class with you in multiple different course codes, just trying to keep doing my thing. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. But your work ethic is what got you where you are now. And as a side note, I know you grew up in Fort Lauderdale and you're a Dolphins fan. So at least your week started off on a good note, right?
I mean, could it be any better for the state of Florida right now? Well, finally, the Dolphins find the win column. Great jerseys, by the way, those deep, dark water jerseys. And now you get Florida State, Miami, and still a top 20 showdown and still going to be all the marbles on the table and all the emotion that you can imagine. I can't imagine what Doak is going to be like on Saturday. It's going to be crazy.
Taylor, we have to ask, because Tom and I worked with and around Jimbo. Bob covered Jimbo. His exit from Florida State had some negativity associated with it, but he'd won a national championship, and he is a big personality. What's it like putting up with old Buckethead?
It has been really fun. I have had a ton of fun working with him. Getting to know like Jimbo the person is much different than getting to know Jimbo a head coach. The different stage he's at in his life. And granted, I wouldn't count out coaching in the future. The man is still young and as brilliant as anybody. But it's a different chapter and he's looking at things from a different lens and he's bought in so much. Like he studies, man, that shouldn't surprise anyone because the guy loves to watch film and he loves ball and he loves these young men, but he studies, he asks questions, he listens, he participates, like he's fully invested. And that's really been the coolest part, just to see that he's taking this as seriously as he is. He's not just doing it to bide his time and put his face on TV. Like he's actually enjoying and investing in what he's doing. And it's really cool to see people respond to it. Other coaches, when we bring them on, pay their dues and respects and give him his flowers. Not everyone gets their flowers, while they're around, and he is. And I think that's really cool. Coaches are so excited to be talking to him. And even some players we've encountered will start the interview by saying, first of all, I just want to note it's great to be with you, Coach Fisher, which I think is really cool to see that perspective. And I think, people have come around to realize, and that's been cool to see Florida State fans. They've enjoyed listening and watching him because at the end of the day, this man won you a national championship. Succeeding a legendary head coach, that doesn't happen everywhere. To go from Bobby Bowden to winning a national championship a couple of years later, there's a lot of programs that go from the pinnacle to some valleys after. And that never happened for Florida State. So I think people are looking at Jimbo and realizing it was pretty good what they had. And he deserves the respect regardless of how things went down in the end. He still lives in Tallahassee, still very much loves Tallahassee and doesn't shy away from that. And I think he's excited to be back.
Taylor, there's like a fire hose of information each week on each game. Florida State, Miami being 2 top 25 games. You've got press conferences, interviews, game notes, stats. You can watch games. How do you maybe filter it down to your talking points, your storylines, what you want to hit on a Friday show, on a Saturday show, and such?
So the main thing I do, first of all, as a host, is I talk to my 3 guys on the desk. I talk to Eddie Royal, I talk to Eric Macklin, I talk to Jimbo, and I ask them when they've watched the film what they're seeing and what's important to them in the game of the past week from the team as a whole over the course of the season and what's to come this week. And that's how I sort of filter out what I need to be most focused on, because what they're seeing obviously is probably what I'm seeing too, but on a deeper level. So I ask them because what's important to them is obviously what they're going to be most passionate about on TV. So I try to make sure that we're hitting those points. I read every recap. I read a lot of things like Bob, you would put out, local writers and local television. It's still the most important thing because you guys are the boots on the ground. That's the main thing I'll do first is read whatever the local papers are putting out and what you guys have, written about and talked to the players and coaches about directly there. You don't always get to see all of it. You'll just see like maybe flashes of what ESPN puts out. I read the recaps from ESPN with the statistics and the analytics. They give us some great little blurbs. And then I just look at the totality of the season, right? Like what's trending, whose run defense stinks, whose run game is the best. Is that what's going to be the matchup this upcoming week? It probably doesn't end up being that. You kind of saw that with Florida State. Virginia did not expect Virginia to run it up the way that they did on the ground against Florida State, but I thought that was going to be a key matchup. So that's pretty much what I do. Talk to my analysts, look at local reports, and then read ESPN's statistical recaps from Stats and Information. They do an incredible job of tracking everything, especially the big games.
We're talking with Taylor Tannebaum from ACC Network. They will be in town this weekend, all weekend, broadcasting from Florida State's campus. So tell us a little bit about the schedule. I guess you have ACC PM on Friday, ACC Huddle on Saturday. If you don't know Taylor, folks, she's an FSU alum. You'll recognize her face if you follow college football at all. But what's on tap this weekend in Tallahassee?
Man, a lot. We're really expanding our coverage this weekend, which is really exciting because I think even before everything that happened over the last weekend, we knew how big this was going to be. And I think arguably this is the biggest matchup between the two in nearly 2 decades. It's been a really long time. It's had this much on the line, I think. So for Friday, we'll be outside the whole weekend. We'll be outside like Heritage Fountain area across from the circus for people who don't know, kind of down the right field baseball line, if that's an easier way to describe it. It'll be me, it'll be Jimbo, it'll be Eddie Royal, it'll be Eric Macklin, and we will have guests stopping by. I think Dalvin Cook might be coming by Saturday for the ACC huddle, which is exciting. If Jimbo texts, people will come. Trust me. They listen to anything coach says, which is really great for us. But Friday, 5 to 7 outside at 5 to 7 p.m., we'll have some ACC PM stuff. And Kelsey Riggs and Coach Mark Richt and Tom Luganbill are also coming. We are extending our coverage. So they will be there doing some stuff. I'm excited for Coach Richt because obviously he has dual meaning in this game with playing in Miami and coaching there and also Florida State. And then Saturday, 10 to noon, we'll have our big ACC huddle. So I encourage fans to come out. We'll have shirts, free breakfast. Obviously, you get to meet the crew and just kind of enjoy it. And I know game day didn't end up coming, but we will have fun and we will support this game. And we'll be live kind of all day throughout out there. And then we are doing something special on ACC Network. If you're not going to be at the game, tune in to our alternate broadcast during the game. It'll be me, Jimbo, Eddie Royal, and Eric Macklin sideline with special guests cycling through, doing, an alt broadcast of the game and talking over what we're seeing and kind of just having fun from the sideline. So that's new, different, something we've never done. And it'll give fans a different perspective on watching the game.
All right, Taylor, fess up. Are you actually going to try to follow your mentor and Tom Block and you're going to do the play-by-play?
So that's actually funny. maybe at some point the guys will let me do it. I'm going to just kind of softball them and let them take it away. And I have a feeling being next to a guy like Jimbo, who one likes to talk already, we all know that, and two, he's going to feel like he's in this game. I think like they're going to be taking most of the shine.
Well, Jimbo's wired for that. I mean, when I hosted his show, it was the easiest job ever. It was just welcome to the Jimbo Fisher Show, and then he talked for 48 minutes straight, right? So him over a game is great. I'm curious though, when you're doing a show and you have to get to break, and he's supposed to be in and out in 15 seconds. The 15-second soundbite is not Jimbo. So tell the truth, it's just us. How often is the producer in his ear saying, "Jimbo, wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up"?
So guys, this is the craziest part, is that's what everyone was expecting when we announced his hire. People are like, God, how is he going to get out when you need to have time constraints on television? He has been so good. Like, listen, he still talks a mile a minute. No one questions that. But I would even argue he's taken that down a notch, and he can be succinct. Like, don't let him fool you. He's done a very nice job of actually being concise when he has to. And he hasn't overspoken. Everything he says to me is poignant, which I think is so important in television. You don't want to overspeak. And he's been very good about that. And every single time I take away something that's important. We do at the top of our ACC Huddle Show do something called the Saturday Slate, where we run through like 5 or 6 big games that we have that week. And it's 15 seconds, Tom. You have to keep it within 15 seconds. And the first 2 weeks, he overran the 15. He has been perfect since. He got it.
Taylor, I will tell you, I'm familiar with Jimbo being succinct. We had a 15-second conversation about what I thought was a targeting foul against NC State, and he did not. And in 15 seconds, he made his point very well. Right. He made it very well.
Fortunately, he keeps it safe for work. He keeps it safe for work, which is great. But we have mastered the 15-second Saturday slate, which I'm very proud of Coach Fisher for.
To be fair, he's used to a play clock. So somewhere he's got the clock in his head. He has to get a play called, right? He's done that his whole career. This is just a little tighter. We've only got a couple minutes left with Taylor Tannebaum from the ACC Network. Again, Florida State alum. I've seen you probably annually. You've come back once a year for games. But the stadium has been completely refurbished. I mean, College Town, since when you were in school, has grown and expanded. I'm curious, do you get any time just to tour, to do some social things, to catch up with old friends, or is it all business from the moment you get off the plane down here?
Well, I'll try this weekend because I'll have a nice little break on Saturday, maybe from 4 to 7, to go try and pop over to a couple tailgates to say hi to some people. But yeah, when I get to come during the summer for the fall camp tour, gives us a little bit more time. So this summer, I spent the day, I walked around, I got in around 5 o'clock. So I went and took a walk around campus, which was really nice. No rushing to class, nothing. I went to go see my sorority house and see my house mom, which was really cool. And you drive through College Town, though, and like, what is it like? I guess, is it Gaines? Like, what is that?
Yeah, Gaines Street.
It is totally different. Like, the apartment buildings are wild. Across from Potbelly's was a parking lot, and now it's like multiple apartment buildings. I still make sure I go to Gordo's, which is the staple. Like, I'm not switching up there. Shout out to the new restaurants, but I'm still going to my same old spots. But man, this weekend I hope the doors are open for the new building for the football facility, because we saw it under construction in August and I see the outside and it looks incredible. I'm so pumped to really go walk through it and see what it looks like a month and a half later. Cause wow, just wow.
Yeah, it's not. They haven't officially moved in. They're doing that in their next bye week after the Stanford game, but it's probably far enough along that you can show your ID and pull your credentials there.
Oh, I'm breaking in. I'm breaking in for sure.
Get a little tour.
Yeah, all right. For sure.
Well, congratulations on, interestingly, and you don't have to comment on this because you work for the ACC, but Florida State has never felt as if they are part of the Tobacco Road crew. Given that they're not one of the original member institutions. But then you look at the ACC network and we see Mark Richt, and I know he played at Miami, but had his heyday here in Tallahassee, and then Jimbo and EJ Manuel, and it feels like there's an awful lot of garnet and gold there on the ACC network. So we do appreciate that.
Yeah, imagine if EJ hadn't moved up to E1, which we're so proud of him for being on the main coverage, but imagine if he hadn't. We would have a full Florida State desk. But no, I think First of all, that's a credit to what comes out of Florida State. Me being a product of media production, and EJ and Jimbo part of the football program. And the voices are important for Florida State. There's my dog. Voices are important for Florida State. And I think it'll continue that way because this team and this program considers to be at the top of the league year in and year out. And I hope that doesn't change anytime soon.
Congratulations again on your success. Maybe sneak a little garnet and gold in there. You probably can't. You have to be neutral. But enjoy this weekend and continued success to you, Taylor.
You see the nails.
All right.
Don't question. All right. Have a good one, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Taylor.
Taylor Tannebaum from ACC Network. They'll be on site all weekend around Doak Campbell Stadium for the big weekend that is FSU Miami. We'll take one last break, come back and wrap things up right after this.
The Osceola, which has provided Seminole fans reliable Florida State sports coverage for 44 years, has launched the Osceola Shop, a merchandise store exclusively with Osceola's iconic branded polos, t-shirts, caps, and drinkware. Like the Osceola? Rock its iconic brand with our merch at theosceolashop.com. Are you an Osceola subscriber yet? You join today at a 31% discount and get full access to all our reporting, as well as $25 off your first purchase at the Osceola Shop, as well as 15% off all future purchases at the Osceola Shop and purchases of FSU licensed merchandise at alumnihall.com.
A few minutes to go to finish up a jam-packed Front Row Noles. Fellas, that's a lot to react to. Taylor's got a lot of enthusiasm and excitement and obviously has done very well professionally. And Joe Zagacki's been at it for a long time. I mean, he's on that list, KJ. We'll start there. You know, like I said earlier in the show, you line some folks up and you think Miami FSU rivalry, and Joe's just as the way Gene would be on the FSU side of the ledger, Joe's on the Miami side of the ledger. And now it officially feels like FSU Miami week because we caught up with Joe.
He much like Deckerhoff does basketball. He does occasional baseball. I mean, he's the guy. He's the guy, just like Gene, just like Jeff. And I mean this in a very positive way, but unlike some of the other Miami people we run into, we actually like Joe.
And Taylor, with her success at the ACC network, it is kind of interesting, Bob, that I don't know how you want to put it. Maybe it's the way I said it to Taylor. I mean, Florida State fans have not exactly been in love with the ACC, yet there is a pretty good Florida State presence on the ACC network, and she's part of it, even though she didn't come from the football roots. But Jimbo involved. I mean, Jimbo, he's made to talk football, so he'll be a natural doing that broadcast of the game on Saturday night. I'm going to go back and watch that after the game.
The ESPN executives talked to Jimbo's agent back in the spring, and they were very excited to get Jimbo in this position to be able to be on an analyst stage. I think you're right to have him breaking down a game in real time. I think he did that with some of those ESPN national championship type of broadcasts, those alternate broadcasts that are very, very cool. I think this kind of shows you what kind of confidence they have, in Eric McLean and Eddie Royal and Taylor, but also in Jimbo to be able to talk in real time. Okay, this is what I see. Hey, Jimbo, what would you do here? I think that's going to be a really cool broadcast. So again, if you can't have a seat in the stadium, we all will. But if you can't have a seat, that's a really, really fun broadcast to listen to.
Where do you guys see him getting back high-level college football or just getting back into coaching? Bob is shaking his head right away. So you think
he will be a head coach at a D1 top 136 before everything's said and done. There is no question. Okay,
so Arkansas is out there. They're paying Calipari a lot of money on the basketball side. Virginia Tech, UCLA.
Would not surprise me.
He could go to Florida whenever they pull the trigger. I mean, where do we think he lands?
Now, let me say this, and I can't speak for Jimbo. I've not had the specific conversation, but there are certain programs that I know he doesn't like and he would not go to. So it wouldn't surprise me if he were to say, I'm not even interested in X job or Y job, but that might be a very limited number of schools.
All right. So you don't think high school football scratching the itch works for him? You think he's got to go back and compete at the highest level?
I think appropriately, I don't mean this derogatorily at all, but appropriately, his ego would not let him do that. Now, maybe when he's 75, but not when he's in his 50s.
Well, he's getting $10 million a year not to coach, and that'll be offset once he has to go back to work, 80-hour work week. So do you take another year or two and then get back into the game?
That's not the way they think, Tommy.
I
That's
know.
That's the way you and I think. And
Yeah.
yeah. I'd take off a number of years.
I'm being facetious. Yeah, I'll take that job. Give me that job in about 2031 when I come off the books.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Bob. What's going on at the Osceola as we wrap things up? Big week for you guys, obviously, with Miami and FSU.
Yeah, big week. I just published a story last night about Florida State kind of doing a quarterly report. I should say taking stock, not a quarterly report, but it's kind of some big picture thoughts on Florida State, where we thought they might be through 4 games. I think they got to 3-1 through going into October 1st, right? In a different manner than maybe we thought they would. We thought that Alabama game could be a loss and the Virginia game could be a win. I think we have some good analysis there. We'll have some, stories from Jerry Cutts and some recruiting updates. It strikes me that potentially Miami has a lot of players on that roster that Florida State really wanted. I think Joe mentioned that too, right? It's Ruben Baines with Wesley Basanth. They've got some receivers there from South Florida that Mario was able to keep home. So that's a storyline within the storyline, right, KJ? I mean, you mentioned that earlier. It's the player across from you that you played in high school or on the coaching standpoint. You wanted that guy in the recruiting process, but weren't able to land him here to Tallahassee.
Big week, Florida State, Miami. Enjoy it this weekend. KJ and I will be back to wrap things up on Sunday with our edition of Front Row Noles. And then Bob will join us again next Wednesday, as he always does. Till then, go Noles. For KJ, for Bob, this is Tom. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.